The Harmattan wind blew fiercely through the hills of Nsukka, dusting the red earth with a fine layer of white haze. The town, nestled in the embrace of rolling green hills, carried an air of ancient wisdom, where old traditions whispered through rustling trees and moonlight nights held untold stories. Adaeze, the daughter of a renowned palm wine tapper, moved briskly along the narrow path leading to the village market. Her blue wrapper clung to her waist, and beads of sweat formed on her forehead, despite the dry cold. She wasn't in a hurry to reach the market. No, she was in a hurry to leave it. The moment she stepped onto its bustling grounds, she felt the stares. They weren't the kind of stares a beautiful girl received. They were pitying, whispered judgment hanging in the air. How is she even walking around like this? A woman muttered. It's been 3 years, and she still hasn't moved on, another said, shaking her head. Adaeze ignored them, as she always did, but the words clung to her like thorns. 3 years ago, on a night when the Harmattan wind howled the loudest, she had lost Chibuzo, the man she was supposed to marry. He had drowned in the river, or so they say, but deep in her heart, Adaeze never believed it. Because on the night of his supposed death, she had heard his voice. It wasn't the voice of a drowning man. It was strong, clear, whispering her name as though he stood right beside her. But when she turned, she found nothing. No footprints, no sign of him. Since that night, the whispers started that Adaeze was mad, that grief had turned her into something unnatural. Still, she waited. And then, on this very morning, the wind carried something else to her. A whisper, soft yet unmistakable. Adaeze, come to the old shrine. Her heart nearly stopped, but it was his voice, and this time she would follow it. The old shrine sat deep in the forest, a place where the villagers rarely ventured. It was said to be cursed, a place where forgotten spirits roam. Adaeze pushed past the thick underbrush, her heart pounding. The deeper she went, the colder the air became. The Harmattan haze thickened, wrapping the trees in ghostly white. Then she saw him, Chibuzo. He stood there, looking exactly as he had the night he disappeared. His white tunic unstained, his feet bare, but something was wrong. His eyes, they were not the eyes of the man she had loved. They were distant, shadowed by something she could not name. You finally came, he said, his voice carrying the same warmth she remembered. Adaeze ran to him, but as she got closer, she stopped. Something in her spirit screamed at her not to move further. Chibuzo, you're alive? He smiled, but it was an unfamiliar smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. In a way, he said. Then she noticed it, the way his feet didn't leave footprints in the dust, the way the wind doesn't stir his clothes. What are you? She whispered. Chibuzo's smile faded. They took me, Adaeze, the river gods. The night I disappeared, I didn't drown. I was chosen. Chosen for what? Her voice trembled. He looked at her, sadness flickering around his face. To serve them, but I cannot rest, not yet. Adaeze stepped back, her breath quickening. "What do you want from me?" Chibuzo reached out his hands. "You must help me break free." The wind howled through the trees, carrying a whisper that sent chills down Adaeze's spine. The village dibia, an old man with eyes clouded by years of seeing beyond the physical world, listened quietly as Adaeze spoke. "You went to the shrine?" he asked. She nodded. "You saw him?" Another nod. The dibia sighed, stirring the bones in his calabash. "The river gods are cruel," he said. "When they take a soul, they do not return it. But sometimes they allow one thing." Adaeze leaned forward. "What is it?" "A trade." She felt the ground tilt beneath her. "A trade?" The dibia met her gaze, his eyes unreadable, and he said, "A life for a life." The meaning struck her like a blow. If Chibuzo were to be freed, another had to take his place. The dibia spoke again, his voice heavy. "You have until the next full moon." Adaeze sat by the river, watching the sun bleed into the horizon. She had spent days thinking, wrestling with the impossible choice. Then Chibuzo appeared beside her. "You cannot do this," he said, his voice gentle but firm. She turned to him. "Then what will happen to you?" He looked away. "I will fade, piece by piece, until I become nothing." Tears burned in her eyes. But she said, "They should take me instead." Chibuzo grabbed her shoulder. "No, I won't let you." She smiled, even as tears fell. "I have nothing here, Chibuzo. My heart died the day they took you." The wind blew fiercely, carrying the whispers of the river gods. The decision was made. And on the night of the full moon, when the river shone like silver beneath the stars, Adaeze stepped into the water. The last thing she heard was Chibuzo's cry. The last thing she felt was the warmth of his arms trying to pull her back. Then the river swallowed her whole. The morning after, the villagers found Chibuzo at the riverbank, alive. But something had changed. His once shadowed eyes now burned with sorrow. His voice trembled when he spoke. "Adaeze is gone," he whispered. "She took my place." The whispers in the village grew. Some said it was love. Others said it was madness. But one thing was certain. On cold Harmattan nights, when the wind howled through the hills, it carried a voice, soft, loving, calling his name, and Chibuzo would always answer, hoping one day she will return to him again. The end. If this story gave you the chills, drop a comment, let's discourse.